what happens in marriages. Like we talked about, do you want out? Because a lot of people are in marriages and it's not going right and they're frustrated and it doesn't look like it's going to ever go right, or they're not willing to do the work to make it right. So they're saying, I just want out of this. I just want this to be over. But is the truth that you want it to be over or you want it to be better? And so, I mean, coming out of it is easy, or appears to be easy. There's no effort that really needs to be made to leave something or turn your back on something or to walk away from something. But there is effort that is required in helping it to heal. So, let me pose a question. Are you willing to do what is necessary? And if your truth is that you're not, then let that be your truth. Because honestly, my truth in my first marriage was, I'm not willing to, I just want out of this. I'm not willing to do any more than I have already done. That was my truth at that time, and I had to be okay with that. But same situations come up in marriage. I don't care if it's 1 marriage, 2 marriages, 3 marriages, 4 marriages, 10 marriages. You look at Elizabeth Taylor, who was married umpteen times. Mm-hmm. And obviously the same thing was happening, and so, it was time to move on. And for some people, that's okay. And if that's where you are, if that's okay with you, then be okay with it. But for those persons who it's not okay with, for those persons who didn't get married with the intention for the marriage to end, like me and this one, that's why I say this is my last marriage. Mm-hmm. Because subconsciously, I guess I made the commitment to be prepared to do whatever was necessary for this to be what I truly desire for it to be. But it's putting in the work and being willing to.
That's it right there. The work. And what did you just say in the last topic? What's the scripture you quoted? Faith without works is dead. That's the same thing here. You can have faith that this marriage is going to unfold divinely and be a harmonious relationship. But if you don't do any work to create that truth, then your relationship is dead. It's dead. Yeah. You cannot expect a relationship to be self-sufficient. Now, if you are going to, you could even say, oh, this came divinely. If you had angels come from heaven and put a golden bow around this relationship and say, this is the most divine union that has ever been created, what they call a marriage made in heaven. How many people believe that means that the relationship is not going to have any challenges? I wonder how many people believe that means that you're not going to do any work. That this person is going to just make you feel like you're just in this blissful la-di-da state and you're floating on air. Or do you believe that this means that this relationship was built to last? And if you are seeing it fail, you are failing yourself. You're missing something.
Yeah.
And so there's another aspect of how we approach relationships. Stormy O'Martian, she wrote the book, Power of a Praying Wife. I remember the first time that I read that book, I was so agitated because she put all of the responsibility on herself.
Okay.
And I didn't get it. And I was like, so are you saying this is my fault? And again, the understanding of fault versus responsibility was escaping my awareness. And so what she was saying is basically what we say now, in our heightened perception, our rose above personal perceptions through time, not through her specifically, but there was a seeding, I guess you would say, because she was the first person that I'd ever come across where it was explaining that you change what is within you, and what is going on with him will naturally change. And I said, wow. And I gave this book to a friend. I connected with it on some level, but I was still wrestling with the concepts. And the friend did the same thing that I did. Was like, she talking about, like, no way, like you're telling me I need to change when I'm not. I mean, I can't make him bring me to, come and be a father. I can't make him, take care of his children. I can't make him be a husband. And I was just like, wow. But as I evolved through the years and my understanding of spiritual concepts and laws expanded, I started to understand how we, within the etheric web, are connected to these different energies that impact us. And like you were saying earlier, with reference to words and language having a particular frequency and having sometimes a specific phrasing, because there's only one key to a particular door in some instances. And we talked about this before with sacred geometry. It's the combination, the sacred combination. If you don't have the code exactly right, you may be turning that combination dial, and it may be one little half a line off, but it's not gonna open the lock until you have aligned correctly and absolutely with those particular channels.
And even as you were talking, I don't know Stormy or Marion or the book that you're talking about, but what came to me is what we said earlier. She took responsibility for her own self, understanding that the only person that she can effectively change is her. But what happens when you change the frequency of something? When the frequency changes, it changes all around you. So you are able, or you open yourself up to draw in different experiences. And so if we truly are a mirror to our mate, when my mate sees this amazing transformation in me, if what he is seeing is himself in the reflection of what I reflect back to him, or my mirror, it makes him automatically want to change or to be better or to do better. And this is an experience that I have with my husband, and he has said to me, you make me want to be a better person. And for me, that's like the highest compliment. It really is. But that is naturally what happens, because like attracts like. And so if you become a certain way, you're going to draw that which you are to yourself. So, if you are drawing something that you don't like, what is it in you that is the magnet that is pulling this? Because if truly like attracts like, and you don't like what you're attracting, you need to start looking inside of yourself as to why am I attracting this?
Well, it's interesting. I had a conversation with one of my spiritual sisters about this same thing. We've kind of gone over this and kind of moved through things together quite a bit on this particular topic, because she was having some challenges within a particular relationship. And I used that same example, that something within you, and she was like, well, I'm not doing that. How is what I'm doing, what they're doing, and da-da-da-da. And she couldn't see the relevance to her behavior and what she was experiencing. Because literally when she was making the points, they seemed to be so diametrically opposed, her behavior versus their behavior. But what I was explaining to her is you can't look at the specific behavior as a cookie cutter, oh, this is this. You have to look at the principle of a thing. Because it goes back to my fractions, which I know everybody hates, but you may be showing me 12/24, and because you can't see the 12/24 as a half, you don't see that the energy, the head of the family energy that you are expressing is still a half, even though you might be expressing it as 4/8, or you may only be expressing it as 1 and 1.
That is so key what you just said with the 12/24, because when you break it down to the lowest
common
denominator,
the simplest form,
it's the same thing.
Exactly.
And this is what we do. We don't take the time to look deeper. We just look on the surface. And when you look at the surface, you're going to miss a lot of things. Because if you look at the surface of 12/24 and you put even a half next to it, it doesn't look like the same thing.
Exactly. Especially if I have a pizza and I have it all sliced up and I have all these slices, and you go, that's not the same, because over here I have one piece and one piece. But over here I have all of these. How is that the same thing? They don't get it, because it's the energetic property of the head of the family. That's what we deal with spiritual principle. That's what spiritual principle look like, and that's what I mean by appropriation. Are we expressing the energy of that thing? And don't get fixated on the labels that change in fractions, because I could have squares, and you might not like squares, so you may just be used to pizzas being
Right.
broken up, and you like, I don't get it.
Or the wording or the terminology, because just now you said squares as opposed to pizzas, but it's the same thing. And that's
Exactly.
one of the things, I mean, that I'm experiencing even with myself personally. It's the wording and stuff. So don't just get so stuck on this one little thing that you're not willing to dissect it,
Right.
like the pizza, and see, you know?
Well, I don't remember what that scripture is that I was asking you about earlier, but it's something that I came across this weekend where he was saying we have to move past the language and feel the intention. So that's going back into the energy of a
Or
thing.
discern the energy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for me, our responsibility. So I wrote this down, this 70-30 thing. I've always expressed, I know a lot of people say there's an 80-20 rule. I don't have an 80-20 rule. And my 80-20 rule isn't applicable to the same thing that other people are using the 80-20 rule for. My rule is the 70-30 rule.
Okay.
And so my 70-30 rule says 70% of who we are is based on our pillars of truth, our hard-coded faith system.
Right.
Unchangeable, unless we are rising above personal perception, which means that may not change, but it would expand, and therefore the form in which it expresses itself may appear differently.
Right.
Then you have 30%, which is the egoic persona, the stylistic way in which we express our identities. And so that's not about being right or wrong. That is just my swag, or my personal style about something.
Right.
And the 30% is flexible. The 70% again is not, for the most part, except there is an exception, and that is the expansion of perception,
Right.
the expansion of that truth. So it means that you may have, even taken a hold of truth of something that you've made a pillar of truth that can deepen or can become purer. So that's open to modification only when that is what's being invited. But then the 30% is the flexibility. So what does that mean in a relationship? It means that when you come into a relationship, you have to understand where your 70% is and what your 30% is. And you have to allow that other person's 30% to be, to be in communion with yours. First of all, you shouldn't be in a relationship with anybody where your 70% and your 70% aren't parallel. Now, mind you, I didn't say that they on top of each other, but parallel. Mm-hmm. They express.
Function together.
Okay, so here we go. We got a square that's broken down into 4 pieces. Mm-hmm. And we have a pie that's broken down into 4 pieces. I have a square and you have a pie, but we still have 4 pieces. Mm-hmm. 4/4, which is 1 whole.
Right.
So my style might be square. See how that square and circle always coming back, doesn't it? Yeah. Even though I'm saying pie and square. So my
and you can have a pizza that's square, or you can have a pizza that's round.
They do have square pizzas now, don't they? They sure do. Good one. I forgot about that because I don't typically like the square pizzas. I'm very, I'm favorable. I'm biased to the circle.
But look at what you said. Even with that, you don't particularly favor the square pizza, but it's just the image or the way it appears. Because if you could have a square pepperoni and cheese pizza, double cheese, double pepperoni, and a circular pizza, double cheese, double pepperoni, it's the same pizza. When you put it in your mouth, it tastes the same. It's just the way that it looks.
Exactly. So it's style. And I mean, that's a beautiful example. I'm so glad that you brought that up because that's major. This is how we're looking at pizza, but this is fundamental to how we approach things in life as a whole. So when we look at why did I get married, what have we gotten away from? We've gotten away from knowing ourselves, knowing who we are. We used to have an old saying, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And what that said to me is that if you don't know who you are, then you can be easily influenced or dragged around or find yourself going in directions that really don't serve you.
But if you don't know who you are, but who you are is who you are, and there's going to come a time when you're going to figure it out.
Eventually.
And when you figure that out in this relationship that you have entered into not knowing who you are, then when you step into becoming who you are, now the relationship can't function because who you are is so different from what this person understood you to be.
And that's why time is your friend. We have gotten away from patience. Oh, you know what the common thought is right now as far as dating? People believe that if they wait to the third date, that they've waited. That this is, I'm not.
Or the 30-day rule like Steve Harvey.
Yeah, I'm not. The 90-day rule.
No, 30-day.
90. It's 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was the 30-day rule. Okay.
No, it's the 90-day rule.
Okay.
And because he's saying that 90 days is what you have on a job, you know, as far as probation. So if a job wants to wait 30 days, not, you know, you got me saying 30 days, 90 days to evaluate whether what you've agreed to bring to the table is in alignment with what you are bringing to the table before they give you benefits, then why in your human life, in your own personal life, do you not want to give yourself at least that same thing?
But you're saying common thought right now is 3
days, 3 or 4 days, yeah. So it's crazy because we really believe, well, not we, but I'm just saying common thought out there in the secular world is, and again, this is a secular thought. Even for people who are believers, we are practicing some of these not so good, you know, behaviors. 3 days, 4th day, I didn't do anything with him until the 7th date. Why are you doing, you don't know anybody in 7 days. You don't know anybody in 90 days. Just let's just be clear about this. And there's no judgment, but what I am inviting you into, what we are inviting you into is examining what you are really trying to co-create with another person. But more specifically, what are you co-creating with spirit for yourself? How are you walking in your purpose? How are you effectuating the manifestation of your abundance, of your happy life that is promised to you? How are you dancing with that if you are doing things that are stagnating or stifling you in that process?
And what are you marrying yourself to?
Exactly. And it's not even just about another person. What principles are we marrying? What beliefs are we taking on and marrying? I mean, we do not know a person in 90 days. But yet we are opening our bodies. We are marrying. For you Christians, okay, let's be clear. The word says that in 1 Corinthians that you 6 and you can read 15 through 20. And it explains that you are marrying. So why are you bringing people into your space? You know why people are frustrated with men who aren't stepping up or women who are not stepping up in their ways, you know, in a way that they feel is complementary to them? Because you're not requiring.
Exactly.
First of all, you've skipped the hiring process. You haven't. They haven't gone on an interview.
Right.
And your interview, unfortunately, right now for a lot of people, is test driving them sexually, which is a lower aspect of your nature.
Well, people are going to show up the way you allow them to show up. And like we said earlier, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So it's like a job.
Exactly.
And you decide that you are desperate to fill this position. So you allow any Joe Blow to come from off of the street. You haven't set any requirements of what you require. So you just say, come, I just need someone to come for the job. So he comes with his pants all the way down, with his hair not combed, with his breath stink, his body stink, because you haven't required anything. You have not set the requirements. And then you just let him come. So there's no probation period. So you haven't even set something in place that if this does not work out, I can get rid of this. And like you said, you're not going to know somebody in this short period of time. And one of the things that I've discovered through my counseling session and speaking with people is that it is absolutely possible for someone to hide who they are for a certain period of time, but you cannot hide who you are forever.
And that's my point. That's my point. That time is your friend.
Exactly.
Because patience reveals what is hidden. And I think that's a key point that we have to emphasize. You're not allowing time to show you who this person is. And it's not just necessarily who they are, you know, in these moments, but who they are when they're under pressure, who they are when they are faced with challenges to their spirit.
And in that, you have to take responsibility because you have not taken the time. You can't look at this person and say now, oh, this person is showing up like this, because you didn't set the standard.
Exactly.
To give yourself the time to see if this is something that you really want to marry yourself to. So in this, it doesn't become about the other person. It becomes about you taking responsibility for your part in this thing failing or this thing not being what you want it to be. What was your initial investment?